Hi, welcome to my next video. This time I wanted to show you something I had on my hard drive for some time now, but I couldn't spoil it for you before this book was officially released. This is a new album of works by Art of Heikala, and I did a small introduction and a picture for it. As usual with pictures that are commissions or pictures that I do for someone, I did a sketch first in Procreate and colored it so I can show it to the person, in this case to Heikala herself and her editor, to show my idea and to check if it will match the rest of the book. I wanted to make something that's connected in theme to the illustrations that were in the book, so I wanted to do something about witches, but I wanted to do also something that's kind of mine, so I did a Japanese witches magical shop. And because I made it up completely from scratch, just using some of my knowledge about Japanese buildings and adding a lot of nice, interesting magical things, sketching it digitally was efficient and fun because I was able to just make stuff up as I went. I could move them around, I could change the size of things, cut them, reposition them, and use the layers to finalize my design. Finally, I colored it really roughly and sent it out for approval. This is how the sketch looked like. After I got the green light to go ahead with this design, I printed the lines of the sketch I did in Procreate and traced them to watercolor paper with my fountain pen. This is the LAMY Safari with an M nib filled with waterproof ink. And because this picture is full of lines and small details, I didn't want to use black ink so the lines won't overwhelm the whole thing. This is why I used here a blue-black ink made by Sailor, and this is the light blue Sei-boku ink. This ink is perfectly waterproof and can be used with watercolors on watercolor paper. Also, like in the paintings I'm doing for my upcoming book Tokyo at Night, I decided to use this ink to paint in the shadows, so they are more bluish and not so dark, and also will not overwhelm the picture. When doing lines for a picture like this, I try not to use any rulers. I try to keep the lines hand-drawn with this organic feel to them, which helps to make this whole picture more interesting because the line is more interesting itself. But I think I got too good at this, so I can draw really straight lines if I'm not thinking what I'm doing, even if I'm not using any rulers. So I have to consciously make the lines more wavy and more interesting and just stop my hand from doing the automatic straight lines that it wants to do. After the lines with the pen were done, I started to fill in the shadows with the waterproof ink. I like this approach because I can decide the darkest parts of the painting, which is usually the last step that you do with watercolors, but because this ink is waterproof, I can do this before I start coloring, and I have here the shadows already done, which allows me to kind of get the image of the whole picture and where the darkest parts are, and thus where the weight of the picture is before I even start coloring, which is really useful. I'm not doing this for every painting I do, but lately this is something I kind of like and use a lot in my brighter paintings especially. Kana helped a lot with naming of the shop. She wanted me to name the shop Mazaya, which means magical equipment shop, but I wanted something that has 4 letters so I can make the sign of the shop more graphically pleasing, so I added Ichi, which means 1, so it's the first magic equipment shop, a great place where all the witches featured in Heikala's book in her illustrations go to buy their equipment and ingredients for all their potions and experiments. I recently got my copy of the book at last and I enjoyed it immensely. I really like all the illustrations that are in it. As I already said in the introduction text for the book, I truly enjoy the style and the atmosphere of illustrations done by Heikala, and especially the fact that she can take inspiration from, for example, the Japanese culture without losing her own voice and her own style and her own themes that she wants to paint. I had the pleasure of meeting her and also of having her help me with watercolor backgrounds for the Susume Carolina animation. I cannot recommend her art enough, so if you don't know it, go check her accounts. I'll link them in the description below, and also go buy the book if you can. Okay, so this is how the picture looks like after some airbrushing and also stitching it together and editing in Photoshop. I painted the broom that's in the foreground on a separate piece of paper, so it's not affected by the airbrush and so I can move it around freely. Overall, I like the painting, I like how it has a lot of details to discover, and I hope it will be a nice addition to the book. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. As always, feel free to comment, share and subscribe, and you can also support me on Patreon so I can continue making videos like this. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye!